So why do most businesses fail? I think it's one thing that people are super concerned about when they want to jump into a business. And so I was actually thinking about this last night. And, we were like, oh, well, we have time to film today. What can I film? And I was thinking that, you have so much experience in fixing broken stores. You have your own business and you've made a bunch of mistakes along the way. And I was sitting here thinking, I was like, I wonder if Joe has some commentary. I actually found myself on a couple of Reddit threads. And if you are one of those people that does a lot of story reading and things like that, I highly recommend going to like the entrepreneur Reddit threads and reading these stories, because some of them are they are juicy. I mean, I'm like, oh my goodness.
It's like we're fixing to watch an episode of Bar Rescue or Restaurant Impossible.
Mean, some of it would have made it like, okay, there are some stories on here that like they've made, like it would have made a really good TV show. So let's just jump right in. Let's not waste a whole lot of time. Right. So I'm going to go with the first story. All right. My grandmother and grandfather ran a photography studio. 30 years later, when my grandfather was gone and my parents were kind of running it, my mom's sister got jealous and took over. So their aunt, this person's aunt. She fired my dad because, quote, anyone can be a photographer, end quote. And then she sued him when he took every single picture of me down off the walls. I was 16, so I was a minor, and my dad was my guardian, obviously. And the judge laughed her out of court. They relied on using my grandmother and grandfather's name for a while, didn't pay any of their photographers, and ended up closing down. This was right when digital photography was a thing, and my parents were running the business. It was making money for the first time in 10 years. My aunt, the person who kind of took over, didn't want to convert to digital, and so they actually got contacted by Judge Judy's people, but this person's mom would have been heartbroken to do that to her sister. I personally do not speak to my aunt, but my dad and I think it would have been a good laugh. I'm just going to say right off the bat, I think that this is why it's so hard to go into business with family.
So the grandparents owned the store for a long time, and they died, and the mom and dad took over.
Yes.
And then the aunt
got jealous,
and she just interjected herself in the business.
Yeah.
And then fired
the dad,
but was still working with the mom.
Yeah.
That's messy. Yeah. Well, it sounded like they needed family therapy a long, long time ago. And none of them were willing to work through anything, it sounds like. And it sounds like the sisters were really the culprits in this situation.
Poor dad just wanted to take pictures, probably.
Was it younger sister, I guess? Older sister? Man, it's crazy. There's not a lot to say other than there's some family dynamics there that they did not know how to have conversation. They did not know how to communicate.
I think one of the biggest, you think about this, you and I are family, and we have our own stuff, and it does play out into the business. And honestly, I feel like it's super, super magnified when it comes to things in the business because there's a lot more pressure added.
I have varying opinions about it. Should you avoid it? No. But I think the problem that most people that are like that is it's going to create more problems.
Not less.
More problems. Not that that's bad. A lot of people think, oh, problems are bad. You have conflicts bad. Conflict is not bad. You never actually know how strong your relationship is until there's conflict. And you have the ability to work through that conflict to show how strong the relationship actually is. It's like working out. You don't really know how strong you are until you get underneath those weights and you start to lift them to see. And after enough of lifting it, you're going to get weak. You're going to get tired. It's like that, in relationships with it. But there's a lot of rewards that can come from it because there is a closeness that you can create and develop with one another. But I would only do it if both parties are willing to choose the relationship first. The second thing is they let their own pride, their own relationship, destroy something that their parents took a lifetime to create.
And that's unfortunate.
And that would suck.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the sister, they got jealous. she will never see it as that. She'll never see it as she was the one that came in here and did the demise, although the other sister is just as guilty as her because she was not, you know, I'd have had problems like if my sister came in and fired you. Right? What is that? That was just a mess to begin with. Like, they were destined to fail. But at the same time, like, the person sharing the story,
it's raining.
That was only one side of the story. Like, and it's that sounds like a completely one-sided scenario.
I would love to hear the ant side of the story.
There's always two sides to this story.
I would love to hear the ant side of the story.
Either way, that was crazy.
Okay, you ready for the second one?
Yeah.
This one's actually really good for resellers because it's actually an eBay story.
Okay.
So I thought this would be cool. For 5 years, I had a business selling RAM on eBay.
Like RAM for the computer?
Like, yeah,
okay.
memory. Yeah. The first year, I grossed almost $250,000 in sales. I only had a 10% profit, though, so that made about $20K that year.
All right.
Still, excellent money for only working 2 hours a day.
That's not bad.
That's not bad at all. Each year after that, sales went down and so did the profits. What started to kill me was when sellers from Hong Kong started listing 100 to 200 listings for the exact same item with slightly different descriptions. Even with automated tools, it was just impossible for me to compete because my price was higher than theirs, so they pushed me so far down in the results, there was literally no hope of anyone ever seeing my listings. I had some established customers but couldn't get any new ones. The final nail in the coffin was when the sellers from Hong Kong set up arrangements with people here in the U.S. to get around the fact that you could select to see listings from sellers in the U.S. only or sellers in North America only. The listing would say it was from the U.S., but they'd be shipping it from Hong Kong. Eventually, I closed shop because it wasn't worth devoting an hour of my life to every day.
That sucks. That's business.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, I hate it. This person, I think, you know, I can't make judgments on how they feel about it. I don't think they're particularly bitter by the way that I think they're a little salty. Who wouldn't be? You just got, I mean, because you can't really, there's nothing you could have really done selling on eBay instead of just completely closing up shop. I would have diversified my product.
Well, for sure. I mean, getting into reselling anyways, you're going to look at competition. And it sounds like this person in the front end did not think about competition before they started really creating a business plan. It started it sounds like it started out like a hobby. Like, oh, this is cool, I'm making money. And then when they got into it, they didn't really think about, you know, the other people in that arena, their competition. And that was a short-sightedness on their part. Does it suck? Yeah, it sucks. But at the same time, like, you know.
I also think, you know, if it's a hobby and you close up shop because it's no longer fun for you anymore, like, I don't see anything wrong with that. You know, if you're trying, like this person said, they only work 2 hours a day. Right. You know, it was just a hobby for them. Yeah. Now, if it was a full-time business, then there was a lot of things that could be done, but that would have taken time and effort that probably wouldn't make sense for a hobby, you know, making money on the side kind of situation. And so I think, you know, with something like this, something to learn from this is that I don't necessarily think that this person closing up shop was necessarily a bad thing or a terrible thing. I think that they can find another hobby. Sounds like they've got a lot of experience from the situation, and that was worth the time and effort altogether. For sure. You know, but if you were a full-time business, I see this kind of story in a lot of people who want to be full-time resellers. They might be part-time, they want to move into full-time. These kinds of things, identifying your competition, diversifying your product, you know, all those kinds of things. Those are very important for somebody who your primary source of income is reselling.
I come away with it like, that's a great idea. Like, because we have some listings where we have 100 or, you know, 100, like a quantity of 100. Like, I could create 10 listings of 10 items each and change the title around on each of them. And then I have 10
it worked for Hong Kong
on there for the same item because of different keywords and all that. Like, that's pretty genius to me. Like, that's pretty clever. And I'm like, that's a great idea. Because they were suppressing, you know, it's not that, you know, I don't think Hong Kong's goal was to suppress their competition's listings. They were just trying to get their listings in front of more people. I don't know. I thought it was a pretty intuitive idea.
I don't think that this person did a terrible thing by closing up shop if it was really just a couple hours a week that he was doing as a hobby to make a pretty good chunk of change. I mean, $20K off a hobby
for 8 hours a month, 8 hours a week. So they're talking about 400 hours, $20,000 a year for 400. Is that right? No, 8 hours a month.
No, 8 hours a week. It's 2 hours a day.
Okay, yeah. Oh, so 14 hours a day.
I mean, just assuming he took off on the day or two.
But still, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Especially, but.
And then if he was wanting to be a full-time seller, there's definitely some talking points that could have happened. But I mean, that sucks. But I don't blame him.
Adapt and change. You got to pivot. You got to be willing to reselling in 2023. Like you've got to be able to change, and reflect and see things and adjust your business accordingly. So you're not Ram guy and getting rammed out of his niche because he didn't change.
That was the worst pun.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny.
Anyways, moving on. Last story I thought this one was good because there's a lot to unpack in this.
Okay.
Story. So my father owned a cafe for about 7 years. It failed because there were 3 other cafes within walking distance. The coffee just wasn't all that good. There were limited food options. He opened late and closed early. His focus was on his full-time job. He was stupid with money, no promotion or events, was directed towards a non-existent subset of Russians. His wife, who worked there, had, it says, abysmal English skills. So I guess she doesn't speak English very well. No parking. And he didn't listen to my advice, nor could I help enough to make a difference as I was in school full time. His stepson could have helped, but didn't. I miss the place, but I don't miss what it did to my dad. Like
it's another person. It sounds like the kid had an experience where their dad went through hardships that were self-inflicted. Mm-hmm. It sounds like for them, the kid, it's like the business did it to their dad. The business didn't do it to their dad, and they named out all of the reasons why. There was other cafes in the area. They did not have a very good food menu. The coffee wasn't very good. They had no parking, right?
And then the hours.
So all of that, except for, the parking would be hard to control, but all of that, the dad did. He did all of it. So it's like the kids reading it like that their experience with the dad, like the dad probably had some sort of like a lot of stress and anxiety, but it was his own fault. Like he brought it upon himself at the same time. So,
I think if you're going to open a brick and mortar store, this is not a hobby for you. I mean, no, but that's not a hobby,
right?
It can be formed out of a hobby. A lot of people who own boutiques, they made their own clothes. Right. When a business fails, 99% of that, I would say 90% of that is the business owner. Mm-hmm. 10% is things that you can't control.
Yeah.
Yes, the economy is bad. But if the economy was the sole reason for the business failing, then all the other businesses would fail too. Right? So there has to be some ownership of your business and what you are putting into it. And then being able to dive deep and go into and introspect and say, what am I doing that's contributing to this problem? What am I not willing to learn? What am I not willing to change? What skill do I not have?
Right.
Maybe you hire somebody who has a skill that you don't have. I've done that.
But a lot of people think it's just all the stuff. What items do you buy? Where do I buy my stuff? Where do I need to list it? Like that is only a small fraction of what's going on. Like Jessica said, 90% of the stuff, the success of your business, it starts with you. And if you're an individual, like you don't operate, like you do not do business with anybody else, you don't have any employees, you don't do it with a spouse or any of that stuff, like you will settle in yourself so much more faster because you will never actually reach or stretch outside of yourself to where you'll put pressure on yourself to actually improve and change and develop the things necessary to be able to grow the business even more. Like having employees and working with people, it forces you to do things ultimately like you may not do or have somebody else do, but the work is within inside of you. Like it starts with you, and then working and having relationships. Like a lot of people think that managing a business is just about telling people what to do and how to do it and when to do it. But like, that's only a small fraction of it at the same time, because it's really all about the relationships and working through conflict, and, building that trust and building that relationship strength. Because if there is never any conflict, then you don't even actually know how strong that relationship is. Because you see a lot of relationships, like, a lot of people, it's like, oh, I've been friends with them for years. But then you get in an argument, you disagree with one another, and then you stop being friends, right?
Yeah.
That's not a strong relationship at all. At all. Like, that's a weak relationship where y'all never experience any trials and tribulations to actually strengthen that relationship. And that's what business is about.
It is. Business is very much about the people, having some kind of network, having some kind of something, because we've always found somebody to hold accountable to. There have been times where we've made big business decisions. He and I have come to an agreement on something, and then we went to our very experienced parents, and we sat down at the kitchen table and we talked to them about what we were planning on doing, and got their advice and got what they were thinking, and that kind of thing, because we've always wanted to be accountable. Joe and I, when we have financial issues, we both have them. So we're going to agree we might agree to do the wrong thing together.
Right.
But if you find somebody who is outside of it, or somebody who has a different viewpoint or perspective, it is so very valuable to have that, even if they say things that you don't necessarily want to hear.
Right.
If you guys want to hear more stories like this, let us know down in the comments. I found it extremely interesting. You can also go on Reddit. There are so many stories out there to give you perspective and to help you understand. I mean, why not learn from other people? And these people are freely giving out experiences, and I'm here for it. So
right.
We hope you guys have enjoyed this video as much as we enjoyed filming it, and we'll catch you guys later. Until next time, peace.